a man born on a distant island, whose ambition burned brighter than the sun itself, clawed his way to power. Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that invokes images of military brilliance and imperial grandeur, is often painted as a hero, yet his story is marred by brutality and betrayal. How did a young Corsican officer rise to become Emperor of France, commanding legions and shaping Europe? What critical misstep would unravel the empire and lead to his downfall? As we unearth the layers of ambition, brilliance, and ultimately, folly, we confront a paradox of history. The very traits that built his empire also sowed the seeds of his destruction. Join us as we delve into the life of one of history's most controversial figures, a man whose legacy is as complex as the battles he fought. On the 15th of August, 1769, in the bustling town of Ajaccio, Corsica, a boy was born into a family of modest means. Named Napoleon Bonaparte, his early years would be marked by the tumultuous politics of Corsica, a land caught between French control and the fervor of independence. Young Napoleon, with his piercing gaze and insatiable hunger for greatness, was shaped by the conflicts around him. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, a lawyer and a nationalist, instilled in him the values of resilience and ambition, while his mother, Letizia, nurtured his fervent spirit. As he played amongst the rugged hills of his homeland, little did he know that he was destined to reshape the very fabric of Europe. Yet, it was not just his lineage or education that would propel him forward. It was a combination of talent, charisma, and a prodigious intellect that would set him apart from his peers. His family's financial struggles forced him to attend military school in mainland France, where he would soon collide with a world far removed from the tumult of Corsica. This is only the beginning of Napoleon's extraordinary journey, from a boy on a rugged island to a man who would conquer continents. If you want to follow every twist of this remarkable story, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. History is about to get a lot more interesting. Upon his arrival at the military academy of Brienne-le-Château, at just 9 years old, Napoleon faced a culture shock. Surrounded by children of the aristocracy, the young Corsican, with his thick accent and humble background, was often ridiculed. Yet, instead of retreating into the shadows, Napoleon's spirit flared in defiance. He threw himself into his studies, mastering subjects like mathematics and history with an intensity that would later fuel his military genius. Despite the hardships, he made friends and allies, earning respect through his brilliance and tenacity. The young cadet would study the great military commanders of history, absorbing lessons from their victories and failures, often lost in dreams of conquest and glory. Each late-night study session, illuminated only by a single candle, served to sharpen his ambitions. However, it was not just academics that defined these years. It was also the friendships forged in adversity and the lessons learned in perseverance. Napoleon began to realize that his greatest weapon would be his mind, and he vowed to exploit every opportunity that came his way. At the age of 16, Napoleon graduated and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the artillery. The years that followed would see him thrust into the chaos of the French Revolution, a period that would redefine the very essence of France and its military. As the revolutionary tide swept through the nation, Napoleon saw his chance. His sharp tactical mind, combined with the revolutionary zeal, propelled him into the spotlight during the Siege of Toulon in 1793. Here, he displayed an audacious strategy that would forever mark him as a man to watch. The British forces were swiftly dealt a blow, and his success caught the attention of the revolutionary leaders. As he climbed the ranks, he began to cultivate connections, maneuvering through the volatile political landscape. Napoleon's ambition knew no bounds. He was determined not just to be a soldier, but to become a leader of men, a figure whose name would echo through history. By 1799, Napoleon had established himself as a powerful general, but France was still embroiled in turmoil. The Directory, the ruling government, was weak and struggling to maintain control amidst financial crises and ongoing wars. Recognizing the opportunity, Napoleon orchestrated a coup d'état, seizing power with the cunning of a master tactician. With the support of his loyal military comrades, he stormed the government buildings and proclaimed himself first consul, effectively sidelining the corrupt Directory. The people hailed him as a savior, a beacon of stability in an era of chaos. Yet, behind the scenes, a ruthless game was unfolding. As he consolidated his power, he began to reshape France according to his vision, enacting sweeping reforms that would modernize the nation. The Napoleonic Code emerged, a legal framework that would influence legal systems worldwide. As he positioned himself at the apex of power, a new era dawned, one marked by ambition, glory, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. In December 1804, amid great fanfare and spectacle, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of the French in a lavish ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral. This moment was both a culmination of his rise and a declaration of his absolute authority over France. As he placed the crown upon his own head, he boldly signified that he owed his power to no one but himself, a decisive break from the traditional divine right of kings. The grandeur of the event was matched only by the audacity of the act. Nobility and commoners alike filled the cathedral, witnessing a new chapter in history being written. The imperial regalia shimmered under the ornate chandeliers, reflecting his ambitions and the promises of a new empire. Yet, whispers of discontent echoed through the halls. Many feared the repercussions of his ambition, knowing too well that great power often invites great envy and treachery. Napoleon's reign would be characterized by both splendor and strife, as he worked tirelessly to expand his empire across the continent. With the crown resting heavily on his head, Napoleon set forth to expand his empire. His military campaigns became legendary, each battle echoing with tales of valor and strategy. The campaigns against Austria, Prussia, and Russia showcased his tactical genius. His ability to outmaneuver and outthink his enemies seemed almost supernatural. The Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, hailed as one of his greatest victories, solidified his reputation as a military tactician of unparalleled skill. As his forces swept across Europe, the continent fell under his influence, and with it, dreams of a unified Europe under French hegemony began to take shape. Yet, with each conquest came a growing arrogance. The dazzling victories had begun to blind him to the reality of the enemies he was creating. The hearts of many nations were turned against him, sowing the seeds of dissent that would later sprout into rebellion. As he proclaimed, "The strong man is the one who is able to intercept at will the communication between the senses and the mind." The question remained, how long could he maintain this grip on power? The years of triumph bred a sense of invincibility within Napoleon. However, this illusion would soon be challenged. His ambitious designs compelled him to invade Spain in 1808, a decision that stirred a hornet's nest of resistance. The Peninsular War emerged as a brutal conflict, draining resources and morale. Guerrilla warfare tactics employed by the Spaniards caught his seasoned troops by surprise, and soon, France found itself embroiled in a conflict that would stretch far longer than anticipated. As the French forces grappled with unexpected strife, Napoleon's focus began to wane. His attention was divided between multiple fronts, and the ambitious plans that once defined his reign now seemed to unravel. The illusion of control he had so meticulously woven began to fray, and whispers of dissent grew louder. His once unquestioned leadership was being called into doubt, and the loyalty of his generals, once unwavering, started to waver. The catastrophic decision to invade Russia in 1812 would prove to be Napoleon's most fatal miscalculation. With an army of over 600,000 men, he set out to confront Tsar Alexander I, blinded by the belief that a swift victory would force the Russians to capitulate. However, the harsh realities of the Russian winter soon overwhelmed his grand designs. As the temperatures plunged, supply lines faltered, and his troops faced starvation and exhaustion. The brutal retreat from Moscow became a tale of horror, with soldiers succumbing to frostbite and despair. The once mighty Grande Armée was decimated, and the shadow of defeat loomed large over his empire. As he surveyed the remnants of his once great army, a realization dawned upon him. The very hubris that had propelled him to greatness was now leading him to ruin. The echoes of his past victories became faint, overshadowed by the stark reality of loss. The defeat in Russia marked the beginning of the end for Napoleon. As his empire crumbled, Europe united against him. The Sixth Coalition, a formidable alliance of nations, launched a concerted effort to dethrone the once mighty emperor. The Battle of Leipzig in 1813, known as the Battle of Nations, showcased the full scale of this united front. While Napoleon fought valiantly, the sheer number of enemies proved overwhelming. The defeat at Leipzig led to the loss of most of his territories, and as Paris fell to the victorious coalition forces in 1814, his dreams of empire lay in ruins. The world that had once trembled at his feet now turned its back on him. In the face of loss, he was forced to abdicate, surrendering the very power he had fought so hard to obtain. The echoes of his ambitions faded, replaced by the bitter taste of betrayal and defeat. In a dramatic twist of fate, Napoleon was exiled to the small island of Elba, a mere shadow of the vast empire he once commanded. Stripped of power, he found himself in a gilded cage, ruling over a mere 12,000 inhabitants. Yet, even in exile, his spirit remained unbroken. He implemented reforms on the island, modernizing its economy and infrastructure, all while secretly plotting his return to power. The taste of ambition was intoxicating, and he believed that the world had not seen the last of him. Meanwhile, back in France, the monarchy was restored, but the people yearned for the energy and vision that Napoleon had once provided. As whispers of discontent spread, Napoleon's followers began to gain momentum, eagerly awaiting their chance to reintroduce him to the helm of power. In March 1815, with the winds of change blowing favorably towards him, Napoleon escaped from Elba and returned to France in a dramatic fashion. The 100 Days commenced. He swept through the countryside, gathering support from soldiers and citizens alike. The thrill of revolution reignited his ambitions, and he quickly reclaimed the title of emperor. The echoes of his past victories fueled his determination, but the world had changed. As he gathered an army once more, opponents were once again rallying against his return. The European powers, now wary of his ambitions, swiftly formed the Seventh Coalition to counter his resurgence. The stage was set for one final confrontation, one that would determine not only his fate but the fate of Europe itself. The climactic battle at Waterloo on June 18, 1815, would prove to be Napoleon's last stand. Facing the combined forces of the Duke of Wellington and Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher, the stakes were impossibly high. The battlefield was drenched in anticipation, tension palpable in the air as soldiers stood poised for action. Napoleon's strategy hinged on speed and surprise, yet unforeseen delays and the resilience of the coalition forces thwarted his plans. As the battle raged on, chaos erupted, and amidst the confusion, the tides turned against him. The weight of his past victories bore down upon him as he realized that he was not the master of his destiny. The echoes of cannon fire and cries of soldiers became a haunting reminder of his ambition's tragic conclusion. As the dust settled on the battlefield, it became clear the once great emperor was facing the end of his reign. With the defeat at Waterloo came the finality of Napoleon's ambitions. As he watched his forces crumble, surrender was no longer a choice but a necessity. Retreating from the battlefield, he was filled with a sense of despair that felt foreign to the once mighty conqueror. The news spread like wildfire. The emperor who had once commanded Europe was now a fugitive. In a desperate attempt to avoid capture, he sought refuge with the British, but fate had dealt him a cruel hand. The British authorities, determined to thwart any further ambitions, decided to exile him once more, this time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. As he sailed away from Europe, a final chapter closed on a life marked by brilliance and ambition, but also by hubris and folly. On the desolate shores of St. Helena, Napoleon spent his final years in exile, reflecting on the choices that had led him to this point. He wrote memoirs, sharing his thoughts on leadership, ambition, and the complexities of power. Through his writings, he sought to shape his legacy, attempting to reclaim the narrative of his life. His death on May 5, 1821, marked the end of an era, yet the legacy of Napoleon Bonaparte would endure. He became a symbol of ambition, a cautionary tale of the perils of overreaching, and a complex figure revered by some and reviled by others. The Napoleonic Code influenced legal systems worldwide, and his military strategies are still studied in military academies. As history unfolded, Napoleon became a figure of intrigue, a subject of countless debates and analyses, forever embedded in the collective consciousness as a man who dared to dream, but whose dreams led to his ultimate demise. Napoleon's life remains a subject of intense scrutiny. Historians continue to debate his impact on France and Europe. Was he a revolutionary who spread the ideals of liberty and equality, or a tyrant who plunged nations into war? His reforms in administration, education, and law have had a lasting influence, yet the bloodshed that accompanied his campaigns cannot be overlooked. The dichotomy of his character, brilliant yet flawed, forces us to confront the very nature of ambition itself. In striving for greatness, what lines must be drawn? How far is too far? As we navigate the complexities of his legacy, we are reminded that history is rarely black and white. It is woven with the threads of human ambition, aspiration, and ultimately, consequence. The question remains, what can we learn from the rise and fall of this extraordinary man? Napoleon's story serves as a powerful reminder of the duality of ambition. While his rise to power showcases the potential of determination and strategy, his downfall underscores the importance of humility and foresight. As we reflect on his life, we recognize that the traits that propelled him to greatness also contributed to his ultimate demise. In a world that continues to be shaped by leaders driven by ambition, the lessons of history remain ever relevant. How we wield power, navigate challenges, and remain grounded amidst success can define legacy. Napoleon's journey invites us to ponder the cost of ambition, both for the individual and for the world. As we stand on the shoulders of giants, we must ask ourselves, will we repeat the mistakes of the past, or will we learn from them, forging a path that embraces both ambition and responsibility? As we close the chapter on Napoleon Bonaparte, we find ourselves reflecting not just on his life, but on the timeless themes his story represents. The allure of power, the complexity of human ambition, and the inevitable consequences of our choices resonate across time. In the quiet moments of contemplation, we can almost hear his voice echoing through history, reminding us that greatness comes with a price. The shadows of his legacy linger, challenging us to confront our own ambitions and the paths we choose. As we navigate our lives, may we strive for greatness while remaining vigilant against the hubris that can accompany it. The story of Napoleon is not merely a tale of a fallen empire, but a mirror reflecting the struggles inherent in us all. As we step into our own futures, let us carry the lessons learned from his life, shaping our destinies with wisdom and foresight. As we conclude this journey through the remarkable and tumultuous life of Napoleon Bonaparte, we are left with one final thought. History is replete with figures who have shaped the world, but few have done so with such intensity and complexity as Napoleon. The ambition that ignited his meteoric rise also sparked a whirlwind of turmoil and conflict. His life serves as an enduring cautionary tale, a reminder that while the pursuit of greatness is noble, the price paid can be steep. As we look to our own lives and the paths we choose, let us remember that our ambitions, like Napoleon's, can lead us to both triumph and tragedy. The choices we make today will echo into the future. So what legacy will you leave behind? As we ponder this question, we invite you to reflect on the lessons learned from one of history's most enigmatic figures. In every corner of the globe, stories of ambition unfold daily, echoing the journeys of individuals striving for greatness. Napoleon Bonaparte's legacy, complex and multifaceted, serves as a poignant reminder that the pursuit of power must be tempered with wisdom and foresight. As we navigate our paths, we must remain aware of the balance between ambition and responsibility, understanding that every choice we make shapes our destinies. The tale of Napoleon is not merely a story of one man's rise and fall. It is a reflection of our collective aspirations and the challenges we face along the way. As we stand at the crossroads of our own ambitions, let us draw inspiration from history, striving to forge a future that honors both our dreams and the lessons of the past.